We are live on YouTube and LinkedIn. And our topic today is, will 2025 doom green energy? It's a good question. Let me show you who is with us today. Steve Gordonham, Executive Director in the Climate Science Coalition of America, author of 4 books, and one of these books with more than 100K copies in print. Welcome, Steve. It's a pleasure.
Happy New Year, Armando. Great to join you again.
Thank you. Happy New Year for you too. Steve sent several slides that I have 16 or something like that. So please, Steve, ask for me that I can show the slides you need in our screen. Steve, let me show the first point to start the conversation.
We have a mayor who cut the budget of the fire department in California by over $17 million.
Steve, what a tragedy in California, and wildfires caused by global warming, by man-made global warming. Man is guilty in this situation?
Well, I don't think so. And Southern California fires are really a unique sort of a situation. We have winds that come out of the Great Basin in Nevada called Santa Ana winds sometimes, and they're very dry, and they go through the mountain passes, and they just get very fast, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. And if there are fires, they just blow them into huge blazes. And right now they have the biggest catastrophe they've had. I think in 1993, they had a lot of fires also, but thousands of structures burned to the ground. As you mentioned earlier before we came on, 180,000 people evacuated. So that's a special case, and it really shows the power of nature. We do have a few groups saying this is due to man-made global warming. There was an article in Newsweek, and there are some others. And actually, the governor, Gavin Newsom, has claimed that for many years now. He's been on TV saying that fires are caused by global warming. But other evidence is available that says it's really not true. We have had 10 of the top 20 California fires in terms of damage in the last decade. And you can put up this first slide if you want.
Sure.
But there's a group called the Little Hoover Commission, and that in 2018 did a study, and they pointed out that there had been a century of fire suppression in California. And they further said that fires are a way that forests stay healthy because fires remove brush and dead trees. Timber harvesting in California is also down 65% in the last 40 years. And then also in 2018, the U.S. Forest Service had a study that estimated there were 147 million dead trees in California. And so we have all these forests that are choked with trees and brush. And when there are fires and they start, they get very, very big and they're hard to control. I know this is a situation in central and northern California. Again, in the south near Los Angeles, those Santa Ana winds are really a unique situation and very, very tough to control a fire once it starts. You can pop up the next slide, though. Interesting data from NASA. Now, NASA actually, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration of the United States actually uses satellites to look down, and it tracks and totals global burned area every year. And in every August, there's about 10,000 fires burning on the surface of the Earth. But the interesting thing that they found is that the burned area has been declining. It's down about 20% over the last 2 or 3 decades. So the idea, if burned area is declining across the world, doesn't seem like it can be due to global warming, and therefore it probably isn't in California either. In any case, forest management and some other things like having better water supplies are really needed in California. If everybody drives an electric car, that's really not going to do anything to stop forest fires.
Yeah. So we could answer that it's not a man-made global warming caused.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me put some comments here. Eduardo França, show. Yeah, thank you, Eduardo. And Jorge Oliveira from Portugal. He sent to me some material. Okay, thank you, George. I will see for sure and will answer you. Steve, in one of your texts, your articles, you asked where green energy will be doomed. Where or when?
Yeah, so there's four big areas that are occurring, and they mean probably in 2025 we may have a reversal of a lot of green policies. The first we've talked about before, the tremendous demand in the United States from artificial intelligence for electricity, just an astonishing demand. It's also happening in other parts of the world. I know in Ireland, for example, right now, they have banned new data centers until 2028. 20% of electricity demand in Ireland now is for data centers, for artificial intelligence, just a huge amount. So that's the first thing. The second is we're seeing an electric vehicle slowdown in demand in the United States and Europe. The third is wind, solar, and battery problems. We see more and more problems with these systems as they're deployed, and I think they're going to cause things to really slow down. And the fourth big factor in this push against green energy is the Trump administration in the United States and the new policies he's going to put in.
Yeah,
So
in the United States, but not in China, for instance, because cars, EVs in China is growing a lot.
still growing. The EVs are growing. However, I think that is also outstripping demand. They have in China, they don't often react to the market. They just react to production plans.
Yeah.
And they've been producing an awful lot of cars, and a lot of them are sitting around now, or they're on docks in Europe. They've been imported and not sold. It certainly can be forced on the people, but in economies where we have a competitive market, EVs are not doing very well right now. You want to
Why?
jump to that first, or we could talk about the EVs if you want.
Yeah, sure. And why is not doing very well? EVs.
Go down about thumb through about 4 slides.
Yeah, sure. Let me
Go down to one with it's got a car on it.
No,
Keep
it's
going
not
down
this
a
one.
little.
It's
Go down some more.
More.
Go down some more. Okay, this one. So the electric vehicle market stalled in 2024. In the United States, the electric vehicle share was up slightly from 2023, but there's some key market segments like pickup trucks, which are about 25% of the U.S. market, where EVs have been a complete failure. They only have about 1% share of pickup trucks. In Europe, the situation is worse. EV sales fell 9% last year, and their share declined by several points.
Wow.
First time ever. And then Tesla just reported their auto sales for the year of 2024 just a week ago, and their sales fell for the first time in more than a decade. And it's clear that people are not, a lot of the people that want electric vehicles have already purchased them for second cars. Others are saying we're not interested. And then, as we're going to talk about, the Trump administration has vowed to cut all the tax credits in the U.S., which are pretty high, $7,500 for a new EV. And even there's credits even for sold electric vehicles that you get if you resell it. So these things are going to stall the market here, and that's going to put a crimp in the green movement as well. You can go down one more slide.
Yeah, sure.
Now, in the U.S., we're having some cold weather right now. I hope you're enjoying your summer down in Brazil.
Yeah, it's still
But
summer.
we had a day last week when it was below freezing in 49 of the 50 states in the United States, which is a little bit abnormal. And with electric vehicles, you lose about 20% of your driving range at 30 degrees Fahrenheit or about 0 degrees Celsius. And when you get down to about 10 degrees Fahrenheit, or what is that? That's about minus 15 maybe. Electric vehicles literally will not charge. You have to have them in a heated facility, a heated garage. And so this is a real problem for people that don't even have a garage. Let's say you're in an apartment. How do you charge your vehicle in the winter? It's just very, very tough. So EVs are going to get better and better, but there's going to be a big pushback by many, many people, and these rules in Europe and rules in US states that are trying to force everybody to get an electric vehicle, those are going to be counteracted in many ways.
But Steve, the situations when we see the US market only, because when we see worldwide speaking, BYD is increasing a lot, and
Sure.
let's say moving Tesla to reduce production. Is it correct?
BYD is doing very well there. I think they're almost tied with Tesla for global EV production. But again, I would point you also to the profitability of EV companies. There are only 3 EV companies in the world where the stock price is above their initial public offering. BYD is one of them. There's another one in China, and Tesla. In the United States, we had another 30 companies that had initial public offerings within the last 4 years. 30 EV companies, and all of them are way down.
Wow.
I mean, Rivian and all these things are down 80-90% from their initial offering price. And most of them are losing money on every electric vehicle sold. So we have a whole lot of companies out there that are producing these cars. People aren't buying them, and they're not really, with the exception of Tesla, they're not really very good investments.
Mhm. Yeah, when we mentioned that heavyweight cars do not fit very well to EVs, is clear for me because
Yes,
size of
right.
batteries, yeah. But small cars, very small ones, maybe there is a space in the future. I don't know exactly.
I think they're going to continue to gain share. It's just we're going to have a mixed future, I think, of gasoline, diesel, and maybe ethanol, as they do in Brazil, and electric vehicles. It's not going to have everything swing to electric vehicles, despite governments trying to force it. In any case, if we all switch to EVs, it's not going to stop the oceans from rising anyway. That's modern superstition.
Yeah, in Brazil, it's not the case for EV because the infrastructure, we do not have enough to charge cars outside.
That's another big problem.
Yeah.
Every pure infrastructure company in the United States and Europe is losing money. Every one of them. You cannot.
Yeah.
So far, nobody can be profitable putting in just EV chargers. And part of the reason is that people want to charge at home. They would do 80% of their charging at home, and just a little bit when they're on the road, and so you can't get the volume that you need. And then it takes a half hour or an hour to charge. And then we have people running around cutting the cables. And then if you're in the winter, you can't charge them either. I mean, there's just a whole lot of problems. So again, they're going to get better and better, but we're a long way from having them take over the markets.
And Steve, and moving to solar and wind energy source, are they doing well? How things are going for this two energy?
This is another thing that's a problem. So go down to the next slide here.
Sure.
Wind and solar are facing increasing obstacles, and there's a bunch of issues. One is intermittency, of course, but another one is land area. Vaclav Smil, a scientist in Canada, wrote a book a few years ago, and I'd recommend it to the people. I forget the title, but he basically took a look at the footprint of an electrical power source, whether it's a dam or a natural gas or nuclear or coal or wind or solar, the square feet it takes to produce electricity. And he included everything. He included pipelines and mines and waste pits and everything. And he found that if you set nuclear at 1 unit of electricity for 1 unit of land, then natural gas and coal use about the same amount of land. But wind and solar use more than 100 times the land of our traditional energy sources. And so they're very, very, if we didn't have fear of man-made warming, people would say these things aren't environmentally friendly. They use huge amounts of land. Go down to the next slide.
Sure.
This is a look at Princeton University did a study in 2020 called Net Zero America. And at that time, we were getting about 10% of our electricity from wind and solar. Now it's up at about 14. But they said to go to 50% would require a small thing, 228,000 square miles of incremental land. This was an area larger than 6 states in the United States. And Princeton is a renewable fan. I mean, they're proposing we go do this, but the amount of land is just astronomical, and these things are not going to happen.
Mhm.
Why don't you go down to the next slide? I'll talk a little about some other issues here.
Mhm.
So we have a whole bunch of states now that want to build wind offshore, and the Biden administration has been promoting this. By the way, Mr. Trump is coming in saying he's going to stop all this. He doesn't like offshore wind. But these things are very, very high risk. This map is a map of the tropical storm and hurricane tracks over the last 170 years off the coast of New Jersey or through the New Jersey area. There have been 77 storms. And so about every 2.5 years, we get a tropical storm or a hurricane that comes through these areas.
Mhm.
And they're just going to destroy these wind turbine towers. We had a single wind turbine blade that was 350 feet long break up near Massachusetts this summer. All the fiberglass and the debris washed up on the beaches. And it took 6 truckloads to pick up from a single blade of wind turbines.
Mhm.
If we have a storm come through one of these areas, we're going to have mountains of debris on Long Island or Massachusetts or Virginia Beach. It's just going to cover these beaches, and people aren't going to be very happy. The other little image there is image of damage in Puerto Rico from Hurricane 2018, and basically all the blades are crunched.
Mhm.
Now they do put measures into these wind turbines to try and protect them from the wind. They change their angle and they turn into the wind. The problem is that near the eye of a tropical storm or of a hurricane, the winds change instantaneously in different directions and very powerfully. And there
Unpredictable.
is no system that's going to be able to protect from those. So we're headed for disaster here. Now I understand they just promoted offshore wind in Brazil, which may work. You may not get the same kind of storms that we get.
Yeah. We have regions with more constant wind. It's not so hard that you have.
And Europe, it's not too bad either, but they're trying to do this in the U.S., and this is going to be a mess. And the ratepayers are going to end up paying for all this. They're going to get socked with big electricity increases.
Yeah. And Steve, what people are using to cover the intermittency of this two energy source, solar and wind? Batteries?
Right. So this is batteries. So go down 2 slides. Yeah,
sure.
grid scale batteries is the latest one. Go down one more. Yeah. And what the idea here is that when wind and solar are working, they could charge up batteries and store energy, and then wind and solar are not working, they can release the energy so they can be a backup. In theory, it sounds very good. One of the problems is it is very, very expensive. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory estimates that a typical solar system, solar installation costs about $1 million per megawatt.
Wow.
Now, if you want to back that up for a single day, and often you need longer because wind and solar may not be running for a few days, but you have to spend $9 million in batteries to back up $1 million worth of solar for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then the battery life of the life of the batteries is half of the life of the solar systems, which last 20 to 25 years. The batteries only last about 12. So you're talking about a battery cost that's more than 10 times the cost of the system they're trying to back up.
Yeah.
Just very, very expensive.
Yeah, but that's a good point, because instead of batteries, what you can be used to back up or to contingency solar and wind? Gas, natural gas, coal, nuclear?
Well, I don't want to do that, right? Natural gas and coal and nuclear can do it, but that's not what the Green Movement wants to do. They want to get rid of all that.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's another problem with grid scale batteries we've talked about before. Go down one more slide.
Sure.
I just learned recently, now we talked about fires at these batteries for a while in San Diego and other places. New York State actually had 3 fires this summer on grid scale batteries. They just put them in. This is a picture of the one at Chaumont, New York, which burned for 4 days. And they have about 3,000 megawatt hours, I think it is, of batteries. They want to increase that by a factor of 20 as part of their plan, and they're just going to have fires all over.
Yeah, but it's a good point. So in California, with these fires today and yesterday, maybe some EVs are accelerating fires because the batteries.
I haven't seen headlines, but I think they got a lot of EVs blowing up. If you haven't driven them out of the air, they're going to get hot and explode.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's just all sorts of problems with wind and solar and batteries right now. And then we have the Trump administration coming in, and Mr. Trump says he's going to cut all these subsidies to these green systems.
Yeah, but
That's
subsidies
It's a
are
big
not.
deal.
Yeah, are not only for subsidies, are for oil and gas also. So in the same way.
Well, and tax credits. Well, they're wind and solar are much more subsidized than oil, gas, and
Yeah.
coal. Nuclear has a fair amount of subsidies, but if you look on a per megawatt basis, solar and wind are like 20 to 40 times more subsidies per megawatt hour than hydrocarbon fuels. So it's very, very high. It may be different in other countries. I don't know, but at least in the United States, it's very, very high.
No, here no, it's not so intense. We have ethanol instead of EVs, and it's reasonable. It's not too much money spent to subsidies. It's reasonable, I see. But let me ask you, Mr. Trump, for federal lands for exploration, oil exploration, for instance, may Mr. Trump recover the past situation to open these areas to exploration?
Yeah, he's going to do that, and he's going to do a bunch of other things that are even more important than the exploration. So you can go to the next slide.
Sure.
So under Mr. President Biden, we passed a thing called the Inflation Reduction Act, which is sending in fiscal year 2025, according to Cato Institute, is providing $80 billion in subsidies to wind, solars, biofuels. We have whole industries that wouldn't exist without these subsidies, like carbon dioxide capture and storage, carbon dioxide pipelines. A lot of this EV charging, without the subsidies, nobody would build these things. Mm-hmm. And so Mr. Trump says he's going to stop all these unspent funds. And I don't know if he can do that without going through Congress, and that may be difficult to do.
No.
He also says he's going to hold offshore wind projects. And as I mentioned, he's going to eliminate the EV tax credits. Mm-hmm. These are going to have huge impacts on renewable industries. Let me give you 3 examples. He brought a new guy named Lee Zeldin, a conservative representative he was in the House of Representatives, to be EPA administrator. The EPA has passed 3 plans in the last year aimed at green situations. One is on power plants that would force coal plants to close and would force carbon dioxide capture and storage on natural gas plants. That is being sued in court by more than 20 states that are opposing it. It's possible the EPA may not continue to fight that suit. They may say, well, we're just going to abandon this. I'm not sure what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. Another one is a regulation on vehicle emissions. It would be imposed on auto manufacturers that would require them to produce zero emissions vehicles, aiming for like 60% of sales to be EVs by 2032. Another one that is being imposed by many groups as well. And then there's a third one. The state of California, under the 1970 Clean Air Act, was granted waivers to put in its own pollution laws, because they had some laws prior to the act, but the EPA has to approve those.
Yeah.
And the Trump EPA has been approving things for electric trucks and all kinds of stuff. And it's very possible that these could be rescinded as well. So these are really major items, in addition to drilling, cutting all this funding, and rescinding a lot of these regulations that could move into place. And it would just throw our green industries into an uproar in the United States.
Yeah, but Steve, not only subsidies or permissions, but bureaucracy is a good point to mention, because George
regulations.
Portugal, regulations. He's telling us that Mr. Musk had an experience of 25,000 pages to require for a Tesla factory permission in Berlin. So something that cannot work well.
Huge amount of regulations. I mean, on nuclear plants, for example, we have a huge amount of regulations we need to get rid of and start using more nuclear. And Trump is going to try and cut a lot of these regulations. But they really are big issues and big problems.
Yeah. And tell me about Chicago. You live in Chicago, you know that. And
yeah.
You can run 100% renewables next year, or when can do that?
This is really kind of goofy. The city of Chicago now claims that all of its buildings use 100% clean power. And what they did to be able to claim that is they paid higher than market prices to a bunch of electricity in a new solar installation that's in north central Illinois, so that they could get electricity from that. And then they claim that all their buildings are running on green electricity. You know, I call this carbon credit hocus pocus, if you will. This is, if you look, and you can put up a slide here. Put up the one about the pie chart. Next one.
Next one. This one.
So this is the Illinois electricity consumption is roughly 60% nuclear, which is good. 25% coal, 9% natural gas. Wind and solar in this little renewable slice, only 5% of our electricity. So the city of Chicago can be very selective and pay. They take extra taxes from the people in Chicago, and they spend an additional amount so that they can claim that it's all renewable. But it isn't really doing much for Illinois.
2022 is so recent. It's 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the latest data. I just looked up the other day. They'll be coming out with new. Here, put up the next slide, though. So here's another example of craziness. This was Domino Sugar a few years ago was putting this, notice what's circled. They have carbon-free sugar. They were shipping these. And so how do they get carbon-free sugar? You know, back in my chemistry, sugar is made up of hydrogen and oxygen and carbon. So if you take all the carbon out, what do you have left? You got a bag full of water, right?
What kind of sugar is it?
It's all very silly. They're out there buying carbon dioxide credits so that they can claim their sugar is carbon free. And we just see an awful lot of this going on. It's all part of climatism, the fear of man-made warming.
Climatism. Yeah.
And humans are not going to have the slightest effect on global temperatures. The only sensible policy is to adapt to what the climate does. And that's what they have to do in California. They have to have better systems for handling fires because of those Santa Ana winds.
Yeah. Carbon-free sugar is fantastic. Oh my God. We are going to the conclusions, and so what you mean is the following. So man was not guilty to the California tragedy. Second, EVs are not growing so well as expected, especially in the United States.
Right. And Europe.
In Europe. Wind and solar need backup that's not can be made by batteries only, need other source, dispatchable source. And Chicago will not run with renewables electricity for the long term.
Just one change. I think California had a lot of human input. For example, they were running out of water, and California has been losing population for a few years, but for many decades, its population grew. It roughly doubled, and the water infrastructure didn't keep up with it. So they've had a lot of water shortages over the last few years. So that's really something attributable to people. And then again, it just seemed to be some mismanagement. You played the tape early on about closing down some of the fire departments. That wasn't really very smart.
No. Tell us about your books. I have 2 of them here. I know that you have more than that, 4 books, but this one, the Green Breakdown, is the last one, no?
Yeah, so these are color paperbacks. And by the way, that picture of Domino Sugar is in Green Breakdown. It's in addition to the science and economics, Green Breakdown is a complete discussion of the proposed energy transition and how it's going, from power plants, home appliances, electric vehicles, heavy industry, heavy transportation, what's carbon dioxide capture and storage, hydrogen, what's going on in Europe. And it talks about how this is all going to break down. But it is a lot of fun. It's a color paperback. It's got the picture of the Domino Sugar bag. It's got some other crazy things. For example, like in a headline in one of the Miami newspapers said that global warming makes couples cheat on each other. And so you now have an excuse. The climate change made me do it. But they're fun to read. And the other one you put up there, The Mad World of Climatism, that one also is great for it's an adult book, but if you have children in high school or college, they're getting a very one-sided point of view in most school districts. The Mad World of Climatism will give them a better point of view. But they can go to my website, Steve Gorham, GOREHAM.com. I'll send them a signed copy. Or they can go to Amazon, and there are ebooks available as well.
Excellent, excellent. Very good. And Steve, thank you so much. Have a Happy New Year. And please do not go to California in the next weeks. Stay in Chicago.
Too much. Well, you have a great summer, and we'll see you again.
Thank you. Great. Bye-bye.